might come in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
Roads, where we're going, we don't need roads.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Film Nerd Podcast. I'm Vince, and for episode 33, I have a very special first-time guest, Mr. Landon Defever. He is a fellow Michigander, very talented musician, as well as a fellow movie lover, has his own podcast talking about movies, Films for the Void, that he runs with his dear friend Eric. And Landon and I actually met on the wonderfully twisted world of film Twitter. Landon, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How about you, Vince?
Oh, like I said to you when we were talking before we started, it's another beautiful day in February in the great state of Michigan, right?
Absolutely. How can you not immediately be excited by all those words next to each other?
That sentence is probably the dread of many people who live in Florida. You know what I mean?
Oh, God, yeah.
Well, how's life? Speaking of Michigan, how's life been going for you here in the great state of Michigan over the last couple of years? I'm sure you've talked about it on your podcast a little bit, and we talked a little bit here before we got started, but movie going experience been okay for you?
It's been good. The year so far has been nice. A couple of weeks ago, I went to Phoenix for the first time, and that's the furthest west I've ever been in my life, actually. So I flew out there to go to 8123 Fest, which is the Maine's music festival. They're my second favorite band next to the Wonders. As you can see, the big music person. I'm in the background with the flags and such. But yeah, I did that and met a couple of my good friends out there. And we hiked Papagoa Mountain. We went to the festival, which was a blast. And I finally got to explore Phoenix and had an amazing time. So I'm still riding the high off of that a little bit. I also turned 29 a couple of weeks ago, and that has been very nice. And
happy birthday.
I don't know. Yeah, it has been. It is the golden birthday. Yeah. And I've really enjoyed it. It's been really nice. I've been just pursuing a lot of creative stuff lately, and I feel like it's been really rewarding and fulfilling. And I've been getting a lot of positive feedback with podcast stuff and music stuff. And it's just been really, really nice.
Speaking of 29 and movies that came out in 2021, I don't know about you, but after turning 29 and watching Bo Burnham's Inside, how much are you thinking about the 30 song? Because I can't get it out of my head. I turned 30 this September. So I can't.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Yes, I do.
Nice. Okay. All right. Honestly, like I feel like that's been like a very recurring theme in media very recently. I felt that very much in Inside, as well as Tick Tick Boom, the Lin-Manuel Miranda.
That's right. Yep.
That was a very prominent running theme throughout that movie as well. I don't know. I guess like my attitude toward it has just been kind of just embracing it in a lot of ways. I feel like it's something that I really dreaded when I was 26 and 27. It was something I thought about very often, not because it was mostly because it was just something that I saw in just in my horizon. And I was really thinking about it a lot and doing like a lot of like, and a lot of that kind of was tied into like some anxiety that I was feeling as well. And just like generalized anxiety in general. But I don't know. I think just over time, like I will say that anxiety and that sort of like, oh no, 30's coming, like that. I think of that meme of like the tornado where it says like, and then there's the guy that says, here it comes. And there's that tornado in the foreground behind him that says like people that were born in the 90s and their 30s. Yep. I think about that a lot, but I don't know. I think that kind of motivated me to stop thinking about the creative stuff that I wanted to do and actually do it. Yep. And I'm not saying it's like all been like smooth sailing. It's taken a lot of trial and error. It's been some of it's been kind of embarrassing, like looking back on like old podcasts, old YouTube videos, stuff like that, like trying to find like my voice. And I feel like Films for the Void, just doing that every 2 weeks with my friend Eric has been really great. Just for my mental health and being able to like express views that I share with film about all the time. And actually not only just like having basic opinions, because anyone can just put a score on Letterboxd and be like, oh yeah, that's how I feel about it. But I just wanted to like write, even if it's just like a sentence, like write a thought on every movie that I watch. And I think all of that combined has been really helpful for me and like kind of finding my voice and where I fit in with like media and entertainment in a way that I've really wanted to find for a long time. So yeah, I think all that combined has really benefited me. So I don't know, going back to like the 30 thing, like I don't know, it's just one of those things like I just kind of want to embrace when it hits.
Yeah, and a few things there that you talk about. I love that you mentioned some of those things because it's something that I think about quite a bit. This idea that, you know, before you hit 30, and I, like you mentioned, Tick, Tick, Boom, I think that's brought up a lot in that film, that there's this idea that you're supposed to have achieved something great by the time you got to your 30s. But there's so many great examples. Yeah, there's so many great examples out there, even 20, 30, 40 years ago, of a lot of talented people who didn't do anything until their 40s or 50s. And I don't know about you, I'm a huge Curb Your Enthusiasm and Seinfeld fan.
Same.
Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David are two great examples. Those guys didn't really make it big till they were like 30s, 40s. I mean, you know, they were nobody. So and I'm not saying you and I are going to be Larry David. Maybe you will be. I don't know. Maybe you're going to be the next Jerry Seinfeld. Larry
Nothing's
David.
written until it is.
Yeah, absolutely. But I also like the idea, as you kind of expressed there, just do something, right? Just do it if you want to do something. And you know, you and I talked before we got started here, and that's kind of my approach to doing this as well. And you know, if you want to be creative, you know, you don't necessarily have to go out and shoot $1 million movie. You can just go online and, you know, create some videos or some audio recordings of you talking about movies with friends, and, you know, see where it goes. You never know. So I think that's important to keep in mind.
I think something too that really got in my way was this idea that it has to be perfect the first time, or it has to click immediately for it to work or something. And it's annoying for me to kind of go back to the first episode of Films for the Void because I didn't use a pop filter. Like going back to the first episode, like it was like, it's the one that has been listened to the most, because whenever I say, oh yeah, check out my podcast, people always go to the first episode, which is like, oh great, do you have to start there? Because like it's a good episode, don't get me wrong, but our format is completely we've been doing it for a year. Our format is completely different. I wasn't using a pop filter of any kind, so all the P's sound extra crispy when I'm like actually talking and stuff. I use a lot of ums and ahs. The editing's not great, but it's our most listened to episode because people want to start there. But it's cool too to be able to go to now episode 25, which we're recording in a couple of days. Go like see how the note-taking process has improved. Our Eric and I's back and forth has vastly improved, I feel like. And I don't know, I haven't really felt that until almost like a couple of months ago. Like hell, like back in September, when we did the Jackass episode, which we'll be talking about later. We were talking about like we did a 2-hour long episode, and like Eric and I were just basically talking like, I just want to do a pulse check. How are you feeling? I feel like we both kind of had some doubts, but we pushed through them because we believed in our ideas, and we believed in the format that we developed, and our I don't know, just our genuine connection. And it's cool to be able to talk every couple of weeks. And I don't know, I instead of looking for like this big end goal of like, I want to be famous, I want to be like a Roger Ebert or any like vastly famous like YouTube critic like Chris Stuckman or something like that. It doesn't have to, like, that can be an end goal, but don't expect it immediately, because it's very unlikely that it will come immediately. So as long as you're just having fun and rolling with it, that's all you can really expect.
Yeah, I think that's a very important and valuable lesson to keep in mind, that not everyone is going to be those people or anyone like those people. I mean, they are who they are for a reason, you know, and everyone has their own path, their own journey. And you know, like we kind of talked about before we started recording, you just have fun talking with friends about movies. You don't necessarily ever have to be, you know, hit it big. Maybe you will. Maybe Landon will. We don't know.
We'll see. Who knows?
I'm not. I'm going to still be doing the same shit.
Hey, stop. Hey, Vince, stop talking mean about my friend.
Anyway, we're not going to talk about me. We're going to talk a little bit more about movies here. Before we get to our topic of discussion, which we are going to talk about the latest installment in the Jackass franchise, kind of talking about, again, movies coming out in 2021. How are you feeling about the year while it has concluded? And I don't know about you. I put this out, I think, on Twitter several weeks ago. But if you are not a major film critic, you know, who goes to all the festivals, gets screeners and things like that, I don't understand why people put out their end of the year list and they'll go, yeah, I didn't watch everything this year. Or
why are you doing it?
Yeah, I saw like 50 movies. My rule of thumb personally is I do not put out a list. And I put my list out there. I put it on Facebook. I put it on Instagram. I put it on Letterboxd. I share it on YouTube, whatever, on the podcast. I don't do that. until I've seen at least 100 films, and 100 films that I want to see. I don't have enough time to go, some of these critics who can go see 300 movies and, watch all the movies. I don't do that. But like, I go out of my way to see, okay, if there's 100 movies that people are talking about, I feel like if I've seen 100 movies that like I want to see and people are saying, hey, this is a movie you should go see, I feel like that I've given the year a fair judgment, and that 40 to 50 movies out of that 100, probably a good recommendation.
Totally. I think so too. And I'm looking at my open 2021 list. I have seen 68 movies, and I think that's pretty standard. I think it's a little low, but the thing is, a lot of movies don't really especially with COVID, not every movie is accessible right now. Sometimes you have to have those sort of festival connections, or you have to spend $25 on a screener pass to be able to watch something. And I'm like, I'm just a guy in an apartment. I can't really, I can't afford to watch every movie at a festival unless I get press access, which is kind of difficult because they don't really hand that out to everybody. And especially balancing life and work and other interests and like other hobbies. I go to concerts very frequently. I watch movies constantly. Like, I'm catching up on old stuff along with like stuff that's coming out currently. And I've seen, like I said, I've seen 68, and there's still quite a bit that I still need to catch up on. I'm waiting for Tuesday's Oscar nominations to drop, and then I'm going to make a big list. And then I think after I've seen most of that list, I'll post everything on my top 10, 20, what have you of the year. And I'm sure we'll do something for Films for the Void with that. But yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think that in this day and age of like getting clicks immediately and like sort of thing, like if you like the second you see it, you have to get it out there fast, or like it's more about getting it out fast than it is right. And sometimes you don't even get the chance to process everything before you actually just spew this like half-baked take that you have off of one watch or one sitting or 1 hour after you watched a movie. Like, it needs a little bit more time to digest.
Absolutely. And I have 74 on my list right now, but I think because Letterboxd allows you to put miniseries, I usually put miniseries on my list. I will mention them separately typically when I put together a list, but like I got Midnight Mass, Squid Game, and Loki, and WandaVision, I think are all, and Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which I did not like. Spoilers for my feelings on that, which are all on there as well. So technically I have 70 movies, I guess would be 69 or 70. I gotta put, Jackass Forever, excuse me, that's gonna go on my 2022 list, so never mind. Did not see a new 2021 movie today. But how'd you feel about the movie, the year? Obviously we're not sharing our lists or anything, but how'd you feel about the year overall? I kind of agree with you. I think there's a lot of movies that I saw recently that kind of made me retroactively go, it was actually a better year than what I thought. Because initially, I think going into the final months of 2021, I was like, haven't seen that many movies that I would like 10 years from now be like, I'm gonna go back to this movie from 2021. But in the last 3 months, I feel like that number has gone up a bit more. And there are some, we were talking before we started recording about some movies like Parallel Mothers and Drive My Car and some of these other foreign language films that are just so hard to get your hand. If you're not a major critic or live in New York, Chicago, LA, it's so hard to see them right away. But at this moment, how are you feeling about 2021 as a year in film?
Yeah, I think you touched on a lot of stuff that I kind of also feel. I think every year has its high spots, its low spots, and I don't think you can really get into it until you get into. It kind of depends on what you're looking for in movies. Like some people, like some people just go to like the big hitters. Like if you're talking about hitting every single sort of thing, like every sort of avenue when it comes to watching like everything in mainstream and indie cinema, you're going to have an endless list sort of thing unless you if you're actively paying attention to everything. Or you could just like consume Marvel, Star Wars, like all the mainstream stuff, and that's fine. I think that's perfectly respectable. There's other stuff out there, but I mean, if that's how you want to deal with it too, that's totally fine and acceptable. I think this year, having said that, I think this year was a little weaker just because I think we're still kind of feeling that after effect of COVID a little bit, where people still don't know how to market films. People don't know how in market films in the age of COVID, like it's difficult to like, what is the best practice for putting your films out there? Is it to just do a slow typical advertising sort of marketing scheme up until the release date? Which is tricky right now because like you can only promote it so much and have people feel like, like if people have less money, then they're not going to feel like it's necessary to see every single movie unless you're insane like me. But, but I think also it kind of I don't know. I think it's been difficult because a lot of stuff gets pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. And there are a lot of films that I was really looking forward to that are now coming out in 2022. And it makes me think, especially also like some of the Oscar stuff got pushed back into early 2021 that was nominated for 2020 Oscars too, like Judas and the Black Messiah.
Which is on my, for me personally, I just put it on my 2021 list because I'm like,
I did that too.
Technically a 2021 American wide release. Like I'm not going to put it back on the list from the year before just because the Oscars move their date like 2 or 3 months ahead.
Exactly. Well, they also did that too. Like I think instead of you would need to have your film out by a certain time, like instead of end of January, they moved it back to end of April, which I think is fucking stupid. But at the same time though, like if I don't know, if it helps people like get better promotion of their films, then that's good. If more people saw Judas and the Black Messiah because of that, then that's great because that movie's very good. But yeah, I think it's kind of a tricky time. I think it was definitely better than 2020 because obviously we had that whole 2-month period where everything was either getting $20 releases on Disney Plus or YouTube or wherever you want to find it, like that kind of nonsense, or putting it on streaming services. Like I think that was a really fluctuated year. So I think by default, this was a lot better of a year. But even in 2020, you still had some really, really high points. Like Another Round was my favorite movie of last year.
Great movie.
Really, really great. I don't have my 2020 list in front of me, but I think there's more stuff from 2020 that I remember. But even then, like 2020 and 2021 feel kind of similar in that I think everyone's still kind of picking up the pieces. I think there are high spots. I could give you like 5 to 10 movies that I gave at least an 8 out of 10 that I really like and would buy when it comes out or already own.
Oh, absolutely.
But it's especially difficult in the shadow of 2019, the last normal year of traditional cinema, which was incredible. 2019, I think, is a really stellar year for films.
Absolutely. One of the best, I think, ever. You and I talked about before we started recording 2017 being one of the best years ever. I think 2019, I'd have to look at my list comparatively between those 2 years. 2019, I think I might have more like 9 and 10 out of 10s in 2019 than 2017. Just an unbelievable year.
Absolutely unreal. I think you could put it up there with 94, 99, 2007, any of those years.
2014 was a great year too, I think.
14 was really good. Well, 14, my favorite movie of all time, came out in 2014. So
what was that?
Boyhood.
Oh, that's right. You just told me that the other day. My favorite movie of all time came out the next year.
2015. Is it Revenant?
How'd you know?
Oh,
how'd you guess that?
Go.
How'd you guess that?
I didn't think. I wasn't sure. Is it
the Spanish thing talking about Spain? Iñárritu? Is that
that might be it? It's not my favorite Iñárritu, but I really
he's my favorite living director. My favorite.
He's very, very talented. Yeah, really like Birdman. Love Amores Perros. I think Amores Perros is an amazing movie.
Beautiful is an underrated masterpiece too.
I need to finish that. I started it one night and I need to finish it.
It has heavy criticism for being too dark, and I despise that criticism because that's the darkness.
That's the point. Exactly.
Point. That's most of his movies. But anyway, before we go down too much of a rabbit hole here, I just really quickly wanted to mention comparing 2020 to 2021 in terms of end of the year. One thing that kind of stood out to me that you kind of touched on a little bit is, for me, I don't know about you, but right now my top 10 from 2021 feels similar to 2020, where like it was so hard to be like, this is my number one, or like these are the top 5. Like I felt like my top 10 for both years, like any day I could kind of rearrange them, in a certain way. I ended up for 2020, like I said, my favorite film of the year was Wolfwalkers. And
ooh, nice. That's a good one.
I watched it like 3 times. I think I was texting you about this the other day. I put Just Mercy was like my number 2, which I don't think got nearly enough love. Another Round was my number 4, but I've watched Another Round like 2 or 3 times as well. I mean, and I feel the same way about 2021. I agree with you. I think there's probably right now from these 2 years, like maybe 10 movies a piece that I would buy. Maybe. That might be generous. I'd have to go look. That I would be like, I'm gonna put that on my shelf. But
yeah, I think there's even less. I actually, while you were talking, I pulled up my 2020 list and I'm looking at this right now, just in front of me. 3 of the top 10 in my list are documentaries, which is very surprising to me.
Feels Good, man.
Feels Good, man. It's my number 2.
Yeah, that's my number 9. I love that movie.
Also have Beastie Boys Story, the Apple TV documentary.
That was my number 14. Love that one too.
Collective is great.
I had that, I think, in my honorable mention. I didn't for me, the problem with that was rewatchability. I thought it was great, but I just didn't feel like I would ever watch it again.
That's understandable. I can get that. And then everything else was just indies. Honestly, like I would probably buy, looking at my top 10, I would probably buy them to own up through number 7. And that's it. Honestly, like, and even like 5, I don't think I would buy, but yeah, like I own Another Round. I own Feels Good Man, Beastie Boys Story. I have no idea where that is to find. Collective.
Yeah.
I get the rewatchability of Collective. I think it's incredibly made, sort of like important documentary filmmaking, but I get the rewatchability thing. And then Bad Education, Sound of Metal, really like both, but I don't know if I would go back to them super often.
Yeah, I had Sound of Metal at number 5. I don't know if I loved it, but I don't know how
it's very well
I would
made.
go back to it. I would definitely buy Another Round. I haven't bought it yet. I bought Tenet. Tenet's my number 7. I did buy Tenet. I love it.
Gotcha. I would like to rewatch Tenet. I saw it at a drive-in when it came out because it was like the only place like theatrical. I wanted to see it on the street.
I drove to Indiana.
Did you really? I drove to Muskegon.
Did you? Yeah. So Landon and I both actually live in Grand Ledge on the west side of Lansing, but I drove all the way down to Indiana because I'm like, I'm going to go see this movie. And there was, as you remember, there was nowhere in Michigan at the time that was open.
I'm glad you liked it.
I did. I know people don't like it for various reasons. And
I think it's
fair,
okay. I would like to rewatch it though.
I really enjoyed it. I don't think it's Nolan's best film. I don't think it's a perfect movie.
Mm-hmm.
I even in my review, I think I only gave it like a 4 out of 5.
Okay. Yeah.
But I put it really high because to me that 4 out of 5 was just really criticizing Nolan, but I felt like as an overall experience, like, I'm going to watch this again because I feel like it's fair to like, enjoy a movie and watch it, but be critical of it. Like, yeah, this movie's got some problems, but I had a lot of fun. Like I enjoyed it. One that I think is really underrated. We brought up Chris Stuckman earlier. Chris Stuckman did a review on The Empty Man. Did you see The Empty Man?
I never saw that.
So I watched it and then I watched it 3 more times in the same week.
Oh God. Okay. Interesting.
It's my number 6 for 2020. There is no Blu-ray because I don't know for anyone listening to this, I don't want to get too far down a rabbit hole, but I feel like I should plug this movie because the story behind this movie is wild. The guy who made this film, it was his directorial debut. He made documentaries and featurette films for David Fincher for his DVD releases and got Fox to sign on to this insane, like medium to high budget, like horror epic. It's like 2.5-hour horror film, original horror film. And Fox gave him all the money. There was this one producer who's like, yes, I love it. Let's do it. And then Disney bought Fox and he got screwed. Yeah, he got screwed. This got dumped in October of 2020, made no money, had no market, had 1 week of trailers from Disney, no marketing at all. Was in theaters for less than a month, made no money, and then they dumped it onto VOD like in March of 2021, February, March, and I hadn't quite put out my 2020 list yet. And when this movie finally got released, I saw Chris Stuckman's review. I'm like, what the heck is this? So I'm like, I'll check it out. Enamored with it. Absolutely. I love it. I understand if people don't love it, but for me, it's a movie that I went back to 3 more times. And it's a travesty that has not been given a physical media release at this point because it deserves it.
Throw it on my watch list. I remember when that was doing the rounds at drive-ins and stuff, because like I feel like any like drive-in theaters were the only ones that could like legally or whatever have you be open and feel comfortable or whatever, however you want to put it. I remember that was like hitting the rounds at drive-ins, and I saw that was double featured with a lot of other films. I think maybe I was putting it in my head that it was like it felt like The Bye Bye Man, which I think is a giant.
That's what he brings up. He brings it up in his review. He goes, that's what he thought. Chris Stuckman. And
I just assumed it was gonna be that.
Yeah, I'd encourage anyone to check out his YouTube review that he did of it, because he does not, there's no spoilers, and he talks about that exact idea, how he was like, yeah, I thought it was gonna be like The Bye Bye Man, and then he goes, one of my best friends goes, dude, you gotta go check this movie out. I'm like, he goes, I trusted his opinion, so I went and checked it out, and he's like, I loved it. And so he goes, I felt obligated to put out this review. He goes, I even heard about the director getting screwed on this. It's an insane behind the scenes story too. The director has done a couple podcast interviews, and off the top of my head, I cannot remember this guy's name. He's done other than like featurettes and behind the scenes, David Pryor, Prior, David Pryor. This was his directorial debut. It feels like, I say this hesitantly because I feel like people will criticize me for saying it, but this is how I feel. I haven't watched a ton of Lynch. I've watched all of Twin Peaks, and I've watched like 6 of his films. It feels like something David Lynch would do. Not exactly, Because
I love how you prerequisite by saying I haven't watched a ton of Lynch. I've only seen a whole series and 6 of his movies, but I understand his filmography is pretty big.
It's
I say that
yeah.
I say that because I have not watched Twin Peaks, but I'm going to, obviously. And then I've seen over the last for a long time, the only thing by Lynch I had seen was Eraserhead, which I absolutely admire as a piece of filmmaking. I'm completely disconnected from it because like it's a lot all at once.
It's bizarre.
Very bizarre. And I just
very
assumed
bizarre.
like, are all of David Lynch's movies like this? Like,
They're
I just
not.
kind of assumed that was like everything was going to be super artsy and esoteric, and I wasn't going to get into it as much. So for a long time, I avoided Lynch stuff. And then I just honestly like a lot of it was just like, I just think he's such an offbeat personality online and everything.
So
And
strange.
he's such a strange, funny guy.
Very eccentric.
And
that's for sure.
it made me like want to try some of his other stuff. So over the last year, I've watched I've watched The Straight Story, Blue Velvet, and Mulholland Drive. Loved all three.
I haven't seen any of those.
Really? What? What else? Wait, what have you seen? If you've seen 6 of his movies and you haven't seen those 3, tell me which ones you've seen. I need to know this now.
I have it right here on Criterion. It's never been opened. I have so many Criterion films I get. If you're watching the video version on YouTube, I'm holding it up here. I got this on The Elephant Man.
Oh, I've seen Elephant Man as well. And I like
so I've seen Eraserhead. I've seen The Elephant Man. I've seen
Inland Empire.
No, I swear.
Well, now I'm just gonna go to his letterbox.
I know. Now I'm struggling to remember what else I've seen.
I'm just gonna hit you with some titles real quick.
I know, I'm trying to
Lost
pull-
Highway.
Nope.
Wild at Heart.
Nope.
Dune.
Nope. Maybe I haven't seen.
Maybe you haven't seen that much.
Maybe I
That's
haven't
it.
seen as much
That's
as I
really
thought.
it.
Oh, hold on. Now
Fire
I'm
Walk with
embarrassed. Yes, I did see. I watched all of the Twin Peaks. So I saw the original series. I did watch Fire Walk with Me. I watched the Return. So I saw. Okay, now I got to pull it up. So I saw Elephant Man. I've seen Eraserhead like 3 times actually. Now that I'm going through his list, I think that's it. I watched the What Did Jack Do short film on Netflix.
Yeah, that was whatever. Yeah.
Super bizarre. That might be it, actually. I feel like there's one more thing that I'm missing. It's gonna kill me. I have an ongoing David Lynch ranked list. In quotations, it says unfinished on my list.
Oh yeah.
And I'm trying to get that pulled up here before we have too much wasted audio. Fincher unfinished. Here it is. Okay, Fincher unfinished. What do I got? No, Fincher. Jesus Christ. I've had one drink and I can't figure out what I'm doing here. I just had one bourbon.
I'll keep us on track. Don't worry.
Like a disaster over here. I don't know. I think, yeah, it's going to take me too long. Oh, here it is. David Lynch ranked unfinished. Oh, dude, I think that is all I've seen. That's all I've seen. Like, God damn it. Now I'm embarrassed. That's all I've seen.
For a long time, because like I always thought like David Lynch was this real, and he is this really prolific director, like with a ton, like when you think of like prolific lifelong filmmakers, you think that, oh, they have like 20 movies, where Lynch probably has like 8 or 9, and I think I've seen 4 or 5, but I need to watch Twin Peaks. So I think
he has an extraordinary amount of short films and like small projects he's done too.
Yep.
And they're all on Letterboxd, which makes it very confusing to kind of sort through his catalog because they include everything, not just his feature length, but
right.
Well, all right. Before we waste too much time there talking about David Lynch and other random things.
Yeah, I know we've gone on a lot of rabbit holes.
That's okay. I love it. It's good stuff. Let's move in to our main topic of discussion here. So we are going to talk about the latest installment in the Jackass franchise, Jackass number 4, or what has originally was marketed as Jackass 4, and eventually became to be known as Jackass Forever. If you don't want to be spoiled for this film, which the only thing I can think of that you might not want to be spoiled for is if you don't want to know what some of the skits and stunts and bits are.
Honestly, I think that's a fair. Before we get into it, I can tell you a little quick story. I did on opening night. I saw it. I did the Thursday night preview, which is like it was called Jackass Fan Appreciation Night. And I think what happened was they said so what happened was they showed typical previews, and then they showed Johnny and Steve-O saying, "Hey everyone, like turn off your phones, all that stuff. Thank you for coming out." And then they said after the movie, we'll show you some like really cool behind the scenes footage sort of stuff or interviews or extra stuff. And then they showed like a 5-minute long interview with everyone talking about their favorite bits from Jackass Forever. And I was like,
this is before the movie?
This is before the movie. And I found, and so what sucks is that 2 months leading up to this, when the final trailer dropped, I said, I'm not going to watch any promotional material.
I haven't either. Yep.
I don't want to be spoiled. I don't want to learn anything because I did that the exact opposite way when I saw Jackass 3D. I absorbed everything because I was 17. I wanted to absorb every little possible thing that I could because I was so excited. But when it came time to see Jackass 3, I had seen maybe 80% of the movie aside from maybe some of the missed like little bits. And 3 is my least favorite anyway, so it's not that big a deal. But it just felt like this fan appreciation thing was pissing all over all these months of scrupulous preparation that I did.
You stick your fingers in your ear and go, no,
I
no,
did.
No, no,
I
no,
legit
no, no.
did. I closed my eyes and I whispered to my roommate, why are they doing this? I legit did. I purposely was avoiding this for months and now you're just screwing it. And then I went to go see Moonfall with my friend James today and I told him this story and he said, oh, we did that too. And they played that at the end. I was like, are you kidding? So apparently Celebration Lansing screwed up and showed it before the movie. And that, I legit
showed it before.
No, Celebration Lansing. I saw it. The one on Edgewood.
No, you saw it at Celebration. Did your friend see it at NCG?
He saw it at a Celebration. It's funny. He saw it at a Celebration, but he lives in Grand Rapids.
Oh, so a different location. Okay.
Yeah. So just Celebration Lansing just kind of dropped the ball, I guess.
Huh.
I still love you though.
Yeah, geez. Okay. I go to personally. We both live in the Lansing area. Personally, I go to NCG. I only go to the Celebration because it's a little bit further away from where we're at. But I go there if I gotta watch IMAX. We see something in IMAX over there.
That is fair. I also love Celebration's monthly pass. You can watch 3 movies a week for $20 a month, and it includes IMAX and 3D. So I get my money's worth.
If I could go that frequently, I would absolutely do it.
For someone that has a podcast, I'd make the extra trip to head down there because they actually do get a pretty decent spread of stuff. I was actually pretty impressed.
They do. Celebration does. NCG's gotten better, but Celebration, I feel like, does get some of the odds and ends in terms of indies and foreign language films. And then we were talking before we recorded, Studio C which they own. Studio C is owned by Celebration.
Yeah.
And it has the more obscure stuff. But if you've never seen Jackass before, I mean, where have you been? And I know Landon, I'd highly recommend listening to Landon and his buddy Eric's Films for the Void. They did an awesome episode in September.
Yep, September.
I just listened to it this past week after I went back and rewatched. I went on Amazon and bought the 7 film box set of 1, 2, 2.5, 3, 3.5, Bad Grandpa and a half, and was rewatching all of them. And then I listened to you guys' podcast and, there's not really much you can spoil here, but again, if you don't want to be spoiled for some of the skits, which I don't know about you, but for me personally, today, when I went and saw it today, so I saw it this morning with my brother. That's one of the best parts about going to see these in theaters, and we'll get into our experiences with these films in a second, because I remember that with number 3 going in, and I don't think I watched quite as much promotional material as you, because I think I remember going in fairly surprised with some of the stuff that was going on. But I think that's part of the best part, is going in and not knowing what are some of these skits and stunts. And again, if you don't know what Jackass is, I don't know where you've been, but it's essentially just these guys being jackasses doing some of the stupidest shit you will ever see on camera. I would recommend, before you listen to this podcast episode, check out the TV show, which I think they got cut short in season 3, late 90s, early 2000s, Jackass 1, 2, and 3, all worth your time if you want to see idiots doing stupid shit. But we're going to talk about number 4. Landon, what are your initial thoughts on this latest outing from the Jackass boys?
I'll say this, when they first announced that they were going to be doing a 4th Jackass movie, I was very skeptical, but curious. As someone that I'll say grow up. I didn't watch it when it was initially on the air. It was before my time. I was maybe 7 years old when it was initially on MTV at the time.
Yep.
So I missed that boat initially. I knew about Jackass in passing, but didn't know a ton about it, I guess. I just kind of knew it was just a thing. I knew that a lot of my friends watched it, and as I got in through middle school, a lot of my friends recommended it to me, said it was very funny, especially when number 2 was coming out at the time. It was a big topic of discussion, so I dug into the movie and the TV show, and Viva La Bam, which is the side project of Bam. It's an MTV2 show. And I really, really got into it because it just was such an interesting sort of concept for a film. It's a very dangerous sort of thing for someone growing up in sort of like a very like, it's someone that kind of grew up in a sheltered sort of home, not like very religiously sheltered, but in a sense that it was still very shocking and dangerous, and like was a very big like spark of hysteria in like middle America, in the same way that I think Marilyn Manson initially was, and South Park was, and a lot of things like that. Like Marilyn Manson's a piece of shit, but I'm just clarifying that. But yeah, I think it was very much like a big like sense of hysteria that contributed to a lot of people like getting really interested in this kind of counterculture, especially with Jackass, because it was so rooted in DIY ethics and culture, and like just kind of I like just the idea of like a sideshow where you can like where a movie doesn't have to be this free-flowing narrative or a 3-act structure. It can literally just be like a straight up comedy where you're just doing this just to make people laugh and to entertain. In that sense, it doesn't have to, not every movie has to be like a 3-hour. Some of my favorite movies are 3-hour death marches that I really get into, that have really intricate sort of plots, but not every movie has to be that. And I, as someone that has been really, really getting lethargic of 2.5 to 3 hour movies, it feels like every movie in theaters right now is 2.5 hours long or 3 hours. And like, that's the reason I will watch Nightmare Alley and I will watch West Side Story, and Licorice Pizza is my second favorite movie of the year. But next to Titan, if anyone's curious, it's something that's difficult to make time for necessarily. And I can't really say that it's something I always look forward to, even though like a lot of those movies are really great. So given all of that, I was very skeptical of Jackass Forever going into it. When I heard it was announced, I think back in, God, it feels like it was in 2018. 2018.
I thought Johnny Knoxville in an interview brought it up in 2018. I think maybe it was confirmed in 2019, maybe. It's
been a long time coming, because I know Johnny was very hesitant about doing another movie, because when you look at the end of 3 and you see all these pictures side by side with each other, you have Bam on Good Terms, with, and Ryan the song is by
Weezer, Memories by Weezer.
Weezer's Memories, that uses to close it.
And the cast like records themselves doing the backing vocals too. It's like super intimate.
It's really cool, and it just makes me think of I don't know. I think I could see Johnny being very hesitant to protect its legacy, because when you think of when you think of film series, you think 1, 2, 3. Like there's so many films, and that's why I, especially after like unpopular opinion, I hated Toy Story 4.
Really?
I really, really didn't like it. I can get into my own reasons maybe another time, but that's an example where I was really hesitant of the idea of, okay, let's not break up this sort of good thing that we have. Let's just leave a legacy the way it is. That's the reason we don't have Back to the Future 4. It's the reason we don't have necessarily right now have a fourth Before trilogy movie. I would totally welcome that. But those are some examples of like really great sort of encapsulated sort of trilogies. And I could see why someone wouldn't want to immediately jump into a fourth one unless you know you're going to get it right and everyone's on the same page sort of thing. And I also know like Ryan Dunn's passing, Bam is not doing well mentally, all over the place sort of thing. And I wish Bam all the best, and I hope he's fine, and I hope he's doing better and recovering and getting back together. So I can understand all of that hesitation, but when I see the final product, I was really, really happy with this. I think this is probably the sharpest that Jackass has been in a long time. I love number 2.
I would think, personally, I think ever.
It's your favorite of the 4? Probably.
I'll let you finish up before I go.
All right, cool. Yeah, it is probably the sharpest I think that they've been. And I think what really puts the film past that sort of, that puts it in that sort of best of conversation is the comic timing is so sharp and super on point this time. I like the idea of how there are a lot of it's hard to describe, but there are a lot of moments in this movie where you think a bit will end, and then all of a sudden, like Johnny Knoxville will shock somebody, and that gets another laugh on top of it. It's great. It keeps going and escalates on itself. You might get 7 really good laughs in a period of 3 minutes, and in a down economy that is not a bad hit rate for what that is. That is probably the best thing that I noticed about this one, is that the pacing was great, the timing. There was never a moment in this movie that I was checking my watch, both times. I've seen this movie twice now, there was not a time during either screening that I was like checking my watch. Okay, how much longer do we have? Like, I was like fully immersed in the experience and like what was going to come next. And like, there were very few misses, where Jackass 3, I think, has quite a few misses. And there's a lot of like dead air and running gags that don't always pay off. I think there's way too much phantom camera in the third one. And I think that really feels like it's a big reason for justifying itself. Where Forever, I think, is much more like grounded in its back to basics sort of roots, in the sense that we're doing basic stuff. We're not like going super over the top, but when we do go over the top, we're going to pick good spots to make it feel like it's like a roller coaster sort of thing. And I also like this idea that we're like paying tribute to, sort of like the golden years, but not too much, because we have new cast members as well. Yeah. And all of them are really great and really funny. They feel like natural parts of the of that collective. And I was laughing hysterically pretty much through the entirety of the film. And I can't, 3, there were moments where I was like, okay, let's keep going sort of thing. But 4, I really, really like was impressed with how much I was enjoying it, especially after 11 years.
Yeah,
12 years.
It was supposed to,
years.
and it was supposed to come out last year. I think it got delayed. Yeah, it was supposed to come out October last year or something.
That's why we did that's why I picked the Jackass trilogy to do in September, was because when we picked it, it was originally supposed to come out in October. That's why we did it then. Yeah,
because they pushed it pretty late. Like, it was like late notice that they were going to push it, I believe, right?
I know the guys were really disappointed about that, because they were doing like a lot of prep leading up to it. But I know they something I noticed I was reading like a box office article of this week, because Jackass is likely going to be number one. Well, it will be number one at the box office this week.
Wikipedia has a 28 million already, and that's not updated. That's not updated. That's not updated for the weekend.
That's great, especially in COVID. Like, that's really impressive.
I bet you when they update, I'm sure Thursday to Sunday's got to be at least 40 million. I would imagine, at least.
Suck it, Moonfall, by the
way. Have not seen that one yet. Hearing horrible things about it.
I saw it today. It was awful. It's a Roland Emmerich movie, so take that as you please.
That's what I've heard.
Yeah. So yeah.
So you like went right through all my bullet points here, man.
Sorry.
I feel like I got to do exactly what Landon did here and go kind of back over these. So I was going to talk with you about kind of our experiences with Jackass growing up, and you kind of hit on some of those things. And you had mentioned,
I got more too.
Again, if you listen to Landon's episode, he goes in deep, and I'm sure he's going to probably bring up some of it here. And I loved listening to it, because I feel like for you and I, we both graduated high school in 2011, so we're early 90s babies. So we have this like memory and this awareness of Jackass when it came out. I don't know, like you kind of mentioned it, but Jackass premiered in fall of 2000. I was 8 years old when the show premiered. I did not have cable television at my home.
Oh wow!
I was 12 years old.
Okay.
So in 2000, it would have been fall of 2004. My parents got Comcast internet and cable television, and the rest is history. I became a deranged piece of shit after that. No, I'm just kidding. But my brother and I started watching MTV. So that I was in 6th grade that year, and I have vivid memories with my brother waiting to go to the bus stop in the morning. We get ready for school, and we come down in the morning and watch MTV music videos. At the time when MTV, I mean, even in 2004, 2005, 2006, there was still, I watched so many great music videos. I mean, I could sit here and list off so many memorable video watches with my brother. We're like, man, this is awesome music video. But because we were exposed to MTV, we also got exposed to Jackass. One of my earliest memories of Jackass was a news bit on the show of how dangerous the show was to youth. And I don't remember if this was I think this was before we got cable television, so we didn't have MTV yet, but I remember my parents watching the evening news and this whole bit on some kid, I don't remember what state, who burnt, him and his friends like had got 3rd-degree burns because they were trying to replicate some stunt from the show. And so these like news pundits were like, just basically doing a diatribe on the Jackass. This is terrible for the youth and blah, 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 and I remember like, as a little kid, I'm like, what is this? Like,
we got to watch this show. What's going on this?
As a kid, you're like, you want to know what's going on. So I remember once we got MTV, And in 2004, 2005, Viva La Bam was already a year or two in, and I think they were still showing reruns. And I remember my brother and I at 12, 13, 14 years old just got sucked in to watching Wild Boys. I don't think Wild Boys might have been a couple years later, but we were watching Viva La Bam. We were watching the Jackass reruns. And we got my parents into it. They thought it was funny. I remember my mom did not let me go to the theater to watch R-rated films till I was 14 years old. And she only allowed us to watch Jackass because the swear words were bleeped out. I was raised in a very like Catholic conservative household. I don't want to upset my mom, but I'm not really that, I don't really kind of follow that as much anymore. Same. But anyway, so like when she was like, oh, they're beeped out, so it's okay. So like my parents would sit down and my dad, would laugh at the skits. He thought it was hilarious. I remember my mom, there's some gross out one. They leave the room like, oh, this is disgusting. But I got my brother and I would get our parents in watching some of it. And we through high school replay the bits on YouTube. And I know you said you got to see this second film in theaters in 2004, and at the time, or 2006. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, 2002 was
the first
I was
film,
13.
Yeah. I was 2006 then.
I was either 13 or 14 when that film came out. I do not remember seeing it in theaters. I'm like 99% sure I did not see that film in theaters. There's a tiny sliver of me that thinks maybe I convinced my dad, but I feel like I would have a better memory if we did. Now, the third film, by the time the third film came out in 2010, I do know for a fact that at that point I owned the DVD box set of the TV show, which regrettably I got rid of in college, and I'm so mad at myself for doing that. But I had the DVD box set of the TV show. I had the first film and the second film at the time. My brother and I would watch that religiously. We were so into going on YouTube and watching anything we could find on the show. So I remember the third film I think premiered in October, and I played high school football, so on a Friday night, we had I remember having a home game, and after the game we won. And I remember like all my teammates were like, Jackass, like we're 17, 18, like Jackass premiered tonight. We got to go see it. So we went to
that's fun
with like my whole, like majority of like the seniors that were on the football team with me went to like, it was like, by the time the game ended, we get there, it was like a midnight showing, like an 11 p.m. or a midnight showing, something like that. And I remember just like putting on those 3D glasses and like being in tears with all these guys that were some of my closest friends watching that movie. And it was just a very memorable movie going experience. And I've never forgotten it. And, it's been over 11 years since fall of 2010, but that's to me one of my most unforgettable experiences. It's funny you brought up how Jackass doesn't need to be this like artsy fartsy. You guys talked about this in your podcast. It doesn't need to be this art house movie making experience. It could just be a bunch of guys being jackasses and you have a good time watching it. And where you want to nitpick it from there is up to the viewer, however we want to talk about it. But I do think there is an art to being a jackass.
It's funny you say that. I talked about that on the Jackass trilogy episode that we did. But I wrote multiple papers in college about Jackass.
I love that you talked about that. That's so awesome.
Yeah, it's just something that like I realized like it's actually something that I kind of learned from the movie Road Trip. That it's not a good movie, but it's something I learned from that movie at the end of the movie. Look, spoilers if you want to be spoiled for Road Trip, but it's something in the end of the movie where he's trying to cram in like all of this information from an entire semester's worth of work on his way back from this trip to break up with his girlfriend to get this tape back. We don't get into that, but on his way back, like one of his smarter friends that knows everything about the course is saying like, you can learn anything as long as you relate it to something that as long as you can relate it to something that and compare it into your head. And I think something clicked with me then, and I wrote multiple papers on and multiple projects in college about Jackass because it's something that I know inside and out, and that it's something that I can easily relate to pretty much anything. I wrote a paper for my pop culture class defending its artistic integrity. I did a brochure in my editing class that convinced parents like how to properly contextualize it so you can watch it with your kids. So something like stuff like that. And I think there's so much that goes into a defense of.
I don't mean to interrupt, but you'll love this. Speaking of watching with your kids, go
ahead. Yeah,
two of my best friends, my wife and I are best friends. Were over here the other night. They have a almost 2-year-old son. We have an almost 2-year-old son, and we had Jackass #1, the movie on. They were both awake watching. I mean, they don't know what's going on, but we were watching it with 2-year-old kids. Sorry, continue. Thought you'd enjoy that little anecdote.
Yeah, I think there's something to a defense and normalization of this sort of idea and concept, even though it's like involving like piss and shit and
vomit
and vomit and cum and whatever you
genitals, everything.
Mention genital mutilation, whatever you want to call it. I think there's something to normalizing this sort of stuff so we can like kind of further grow as a society in a way. And I think
it's all taboo. It's all stuff that people don't want to look at, talk about, hear about. And I love that you brought that up. That's a good point.
It's cool too, because when you compare what Jackass was 20 years ago and because the first movie came out in 2002, compare that 20 years ago to what Jackass is now. Before, it was this like sort of like counterculture on the outskirts sort of thing. Like some people heard about it, like people knew it was popular, but they didn't know. Not everyone 8 to 80 knew about it yet. Where now it's this like beloved thing that everyone loves. It's like seen as a comedic institution that everyone gets their friends together and goes to see. And like, I think there's something to being able to express that over a 20-year period. Especially, I shared a meme the other day that the caption was "Nature is healing," and it showed the 4 different movie Rotten Tomato scores and how they slightly went up each time.
Yeah, I
think
that.
There's something to that, especially from a critical analysis sort of standpoint. I'm really thankful, and that's why I'm so glad that this movie works as well as it does, because I think
can you see my notes in your head? Because you're like hitting the next thing I have on my notes.
What do you got?
I had literally, this is what it says: thoughts on the latest film and its increased positive reception from previous films.
And that's how I feel. I think people are further like just accepting of this sort of concept as an alternative sort of source. And I'm glad that the movie did so well at the box office. I'm so glad the movie is not only doing well at the box office, but it's really good. It's really funny and really entertaining. Not a moment of dead air, like really great celebrity cameos like throughout. Like we didn't even get into that yet. There's so much to really I like about this movie a lot. It not only coming from someone that's a Jackass fan, but like the general perception of the public as well.
Yeah. So I guess let's kind of get into it here. And before, one of the last things I want to mention before we kind of get into breaking down the nitty gritty and the specificities of the film here. I never expected another one to be made. I was shocked when they announced this. I figured, especially with Ryan Dunn, and you kind of already mentioned this, but I just kind of wanted to talk about it a little bit too. With Ryan Dunn having passed away, obviously, not even a year after the third film came out, the film was released in fall of 2010. He died summer of 2011 or something like that. Bam, ever since. Bam at one point had a public rebound in like 2015 or 2016. He went my brother and I were just talking about this today. He at one point went to Europe and got into skating again and was doing better. And then that was, I think, 2015, 2016, something like that. And then within the last 5 or so years, it's spiraled out of control again, to the point where he was on Dr. Phil with his parents at one point. So he
did a celebrity rehab show on VH1. He's gone through many different sort of cycles.
He sought help publicly. I'm sure also privately people have tried to help him. It doesn't seem like anything's working. So between those two and then the age, Johnny Knoxville's 50 years old now. So I didn't, between losing 2 key members, lose, quote unquote, with Bam, I figured it wasn't going to work out with him, and we'll get into this in a little bit. It didn't. But I was shocked, pleasantly surprised, because I was like, no matter what they show us, I'm still just going to be happy to go to a theater and get to see these guys be idiots again. And you kind of mentioned some of these things already, but for me personally, I loved this movie. After especially this last week, I binged through not only 1, 2, and 3, but I for the first time ever, I'd never seen 2.5 and 3.5. And after I watched all of them, then listened to your podcast, and listening to you talk about these movies actually kind of made me question my assessment of them and how I felt, because your favorite, I think if I remember, was number 2.
Love number 2. It's one of my favorite comedies of all time.
Going into your podcast, number 3 was my favorite. And then listening to you talk about number 3, I'm like, maybe I need to go watch number 3 again and reassess it after listening to Landon talking about it, because now I don't know if I like it as much as I thought I did. But
sure.
your host also, your co-host Eric also mentions this. They all do kind of blur together. Maybe not for you, but for me personally, I love Jackass. I'm not maybe as big a Jackass fan as you, but like after a while, it's kind of hard for me to distinguish what scenes happen in each movie. 3 and 4, I think, are a little bit easier to distinguish because of the Phantom camera and the kind of the bigger budget, the more clean look and technical aspects to them compared to 1 and 2, which, as you really well put it, they're more DIY, right? More do it yourself, more like very gritty and kind of like these guys just, you know, handheld cameras and crappy video quality, like doing it all on their own in their friends' backyards. Whereas 3
it's part of the charm.
Yeah, it is part of the charm. And 3 and 4 have much more of a budget. And the Phantom camera, you bringing that up has really stuck in my mind, because actually you talking about that as a big criticism, number 3, I went into the movie thinking about that. I'm like, I'm wondering, like Landon brought this up, I'm wondering if they're going to use it in this film. And they did. And I think they used it smartly. I don't think it was relied on. I think it was what would be the best way to put it, kind of an enhancer in some of the skits. You know, it wasn't favored. It wasn't like they were leaning on it. It's just like they would bring it in when it was appropriate. It was like, this kind of adds to the sequence. I think of like so spoilers for some of the skits now, if you didn't walk away yet from us saying spoilers. When they do the underwater fart scene, the Phantom camera to actually show the explosion is hilarious. You know, we can get into some more of the other uses of the film, but I felt like I was gonna say bigger budget, but I actually checked before we started recording. This actually reportedly is half the budget of 3.
Wow,
online,
that's really impressive.
It said the budget was 10 million for this and 20 million for Jackass 3. I'm wondering if maybe using that camera less was more effective.
That would probably make sense. And it doesn't feel like, because I was going to say there are 2 big tent poles, I would say, in this film that are like super, super big tent poles, like the beginning and the beginning and the closer for this film, I think are the 2, probably the biggest spots where they use the most money. And,
and the Flight of Icarus, that cannon
that has to
had to have been expensive to get that.
Yeah, that's the only thing that I can think of that would be within that realm of like using a high budget. Plus, I was gonna say, if Bam and Ryan aren't in Forever, and you're I don't know, you probably saved. I don't know what the budgetary, like what the
cast members,
the cast members. Thank you.
Yeah, like what their upfront. What's their upfront?
Yeah, what
to like
their
maybe
upfront
their royalties or whatever. Yeah,
exactly. Like what they were paid. Like the new cast members. There are 5 new cast members in the film that are predominantly featured, and that might have also like factored into the budget a little bit too. It's like we might be able to get you for a little bit less since you're completely brand new, and that might be the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of the new cast members, what did you think? Some of these people now, you just mentioned you didn't spoil yourself for this movie. I saw a few bits, so I was aware going in that Eric Andre was in here, and he was not in the final product a lot. Reportedly, they're going to do a 4.5, and reportedly Eric Andre had more bits than was in the final theatrical release.
Cool. Okay. It's going to be Chris Pontius said it's going to be going to Netflix, by the way.
I did see that. Yeah, before we started recording, I was reading that. Yeah, he's going to put it. They're going to put it on Netflix.
Good.
I was aware about Jackass or Zach Holmes. I wasn't sure who he was, but going into this film, I was reading up on him. I do not know who Rachel Wolfson is. I wasn't sure Eric Monica. I was not also aware of Poopsie. So some of these people going into the film were not people that were on my radar at all. I knew who Jasper was. Back in high school, I really loved Odd Future. I don't really like Odd Future that much anymore. I like Tyler, the Creator, his newer stuff a lot more. So when I saw Jasper show up, I was like, I wonder if Tyler, Creator will show up, because they did that Loiter Squad thing that was kind of like a Jackass spinoff with Odd Future.
It's like a Jackass clone for Adult Swim.
Jeff Tremaine,
funny moment.
I think Jeff Tremaine was like a producer and or director on Loiter Squad, I'm pretty sure. So
exactly. He helped them kind of get it off the ground too. Yeah.
Yeah. And then when Tyler, the Creator, showed up in a bit, I was like, that's awesome. So
that was cool. Yeah, and I like
what did you think of some of these new people?
I think everyone pulls their weight, honestly. I think I didn't know. The only person I knew going into it was, I knew that there were new cast members. The only one I knew previous work by was Jasper. Like you said, I was big into Odd Future going into college. And excuse me. Yeah, I was big into Odd Future going into college, so I was aware of Tyler, the Creator. I was aware of the group's dynamic. I knew every member and everything, and I think Jasper's a really good addition. Not only Jasper, but I love the bits with his dad.
Dark Shark, baby.
Dark Shark.
He was hilarious.
He is a great addition and such a cool, unique sort of layer to add to this that you can kind of pull apart. That not only like are we like bringing Jasper in this, but Jasper's bringing his dad in, and that's such a even funnier reaction to get like someone that is like so much older than the rest of the members, not just like Johnny. Like even like Johnny is there, and like everyone's in like late 40s, early 50s. I'm assuming at this point. And I love that everyone is like embracing both like not only just like this old school sort of like cast mentality of like, oh, we're getting back together, but also embracing this new school of like there's the ceremonious carrying of the torch from one to the next. And it's really exciting to watch that unfold, not just with like newer, younger cast members, but bringing in like people that are much older than them that can get really big reactions out of it too.
It's funny. It's funny that you bring up their age, because I this is something I've been very curious about, and I mentioned a moment ago that I was shocked when this movie was announced because of their age. And I just checked the youngest as of right now at the time of filming, because they filmed this. They started filming in like January of 2020, I think was when they announced actual going in production. As of right now, the oldest cast members are Preston Lacey and Danger Aaron, Preston Lacey and Wee Man are both 52. Or no, excuse me. No, I looked at it wrong. Preston's 52. Dave England is 52. Danger Aaron is 45. Chris Pontius is 47. Wee Man's 48. Steve-O is 47. And Johnny Knoxville is 50 as of right now. Okay. And I think Bam Margera is. I think
Bam was the youngest, isn't he?
He was the youngest. 42. He's 42 right now.
You know what's funny about Bam, by the way? This is sort of a side point. Did you know that Bam is in a sketch in the movie? So
this is something that was in my notes, because going into this film, I had seen, I guess this is a great time to bring it up now that we're talking about the original cast members. Going into this film, I had seen a report, I think it was Johnny Knoxville who said this in an interview, that even with the ongoing litigation and legal problems between Bam Margera, which we haven't really introduced this yet, but if you aren't aware, Bam Margera was originally contracted and set to be a part of the production, even with all of his drug and alcohol problems and public issues that he's had. Paramount supposedly gave him a contract that said, if you are going to be a part of this film, you have to be sober at all times on set. He got, I think, a month or two into production and broke the contract. I don't even know if it was 2 months. It might have been less than 2 months. And they fired him. And basically he then tried to verbally and, online attack and bully and threaten Jeff Tremaine, Johnny Knoxville, Paramount, and other people involved with the production, and he had restraining orders filed against him. It's a whole mess. But before he was fired, it was reported that he did film a few scenes, more than one, and that apparently one made it onto the cutting room floor.
And that's the marching band. It's the marching band treadmill.
No, I know. After I watched the film today, I like sat back and I'm like, wait, what sketch was he in? And I had to go online and look, and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't even notice that he was. Did you notice while watching the film that he was in the marching band during that skit?
The first time I did not. When and then the second time I saw it with my friend Common, I did notice it, and I was like, wait a sec, is that Bam? That looks like him. Like, I watched like when they did the Phantom Cannon slow-mo after shot, I was looking in the background, I was like, that looks like Bam. And then I looked it up and I was like, holy shit, that's him. Like, that's crazy. But they don't draw any attention to the fact that it's him. They don't draw any attention
to him. They don't introduce him. They don't, like, you don't even notice that it's him. Was he one of the last ones to go on the treadmill?
I think so. Yeah. I'm going to go see it a third time tomorrow. So I'll get the order right and I'll let you know.
Double check. And if you remember, shoot me a text, because I'm curious.
Yeah, we'll do.
I do want to go see the movie again, but especially now, because going into the film, I was like anticipating, oh, there's going to be one skit with Bam, even though there's all these issues going on. Then I left the movie theater and I'm like, oh, maybe because of all the legal problems, they decided not to have it in. Mm-hmm. Then I went online and looked and said, no, he was in there. And then I had to go double check that it was that skit. So I was like, okay, they were all dressed up, so it was hard to tell, and they didn't bring any attention to him. But for those of you who don't know, it's up to you. You can go online and look. The dude looks like he's in his 60s now, and he's 42 years old.
He really does. Yeah.
The years have not been good to him. He's been treating himself pretty poorly, very unfortunately. You know, I sincerely hope that he finds a way to get better, but you know, if you're not aware of the things going on, basically since Ryan Dunn died, he's kind of been on a 10-year spiral, which I think, was it you or Eric on your podcast, I think, mentioned that, I think it was Eric, that's pretty sad that his entire existence basically depended on one person, which, you know, you could get into the intricacies of that. Maybe that's not necessarily true. Maybe there's other things going on. Maybe there's other trauma in his life.
It's hard not to pull that apart. It's hard not to point that out, that
from a public persona, you know, who
yes,
very publicly had a meltdown after his best friend died.
I've never seen anything like it. Someone so dependent on a friendship, and it's hard too, because I think at the time, Bam said that he still had all 4 of his grandparents in his early 30s, sort of thing. He'd never lost anyone like very serious to him before, and it's his best friend that he loses. Like, that's immeasurably. Yeah,
because I think they were high school friends. I think they went to high school together, right?
Yeah, they met. I think I think if I'm right, Ryan transferred to Bam's school, I believe, and yeah, they had been best friends ever since then. And
I just pulled it up, and it said they both went to Westchester East High School together.
Yep. Okay.
So yeah, I mean, it's a very sad situation. I don't want to spend too much time on it because it's obviously something that happened over a decade ago, and you know, I'd like to keep things a little bit lighthearted, but I think it's something that's worth mentioning. I think it is important to bring up the fact that 2 of the key cast members are gone. One, very obviously, for a reason that happened a while ago, but 2 with Bam, it's, you know, maybe not as obvious to some people if you're not been paying attention to what's been going on. But I think that kind of gets into some of the new cast members, and I kind of didn't follow up on what you said, but I also really enjoyed these new cast members. And I've seen from some interviews that it's supposed to be a passing of the torch, that supposedly, you know, we'll kind of wrap conversation up a little bit later here with the future of this franchise. But I was going to kind of bring up, I'm wondering if the idea going forward is maybe the Jackass crew is going to keep doing this stuff, but not as hands-on. Maybe they're going to bring in a new generation. And I love, there's a couple moments in the film, especially with Poopsies, Poopies. I don't remember if it was during the credits or in the film, but he's talking to, I think, Jasper, talking about how he's like enamored that he's on set. Maybe it's Zach Holmes. He's like, I can't believe I grew up watching these guys. I was like 10, 12
yeah, that's
years
in the
old,
credits. Yeah, Poopy
watching Jackass, and now it's like pinched me, like, now I'm a part of it. Like, this is crazy. And I kind of love that idea that they brought in some new people, that I'm wondering if they kind of vetted these people. Like, are they people who, you know, were fans of the show, fans of the franchise, you know, they know us, they want to be a part of this. So I thought they all did a great job. I think they did hold their own. Rachel, is it Wolfson?
Yeah,
the balls on her to do the scorpion bit. I couldn't believe that. I thought that was incredible.
It's crazy too, because like I feel like Rachel is the least reactive out of anyone. Dude, and that's a compliment.
She licked a taser 3 times and was
licked a taser 3 times, got like
spit
poked.
Was fine, just spit.
Yeah, exactly. Got poked by the scorpion 4 times, and like I was like really impressed, like how much she's used in the movie and how well she, like, props to her. Like, I could not do any of the things that she does in that movie. Like, there's
very few things in any of these bits that I could, in the movies, the TV show, that I could ever do. There's very few.
It depends. I don't know. It depends how much you paid me, but still at the same time, though.
Or how many adult beverages you had in your system.
Sure.
So kind of moving on here, also breaking down the film a little bit more. What were some of your favorite bits here? Did you have any off the top of your head? I know that you said, I don't know if you had a chance to write any down yet. You're going to go see it again, but was there any that really stick out to you?
The one that really sticks out to me that I'm really excited for was Silence of the Lambs.
Oh my God.
That's a really good bit. To kind of describe that a little bit, Johnny's in on this bit where he brings at 2 at a time. They bring 2 cast members at a time. They bring Zach and Poopies in. They bring Dave and Aaron in, and then they bring Preston and Wee Man in together. They kind of pitch this fake bit where it's like, okay, we're going to bring in this very deadly rattlesnake into this room, and you guys are going to be in the peanut gallery. We're going to put a cookie on this snake's head, and I'm going to try and snatch the cookie away. And that's going to be the bit. So we're going to come back out. We'll like take 5, like take a break, and then we'll come back in and do the bit. But what they don't know is that they take the snake out of the room, and then they put the two they do 2 at a time. They put the members in the room. They lock the door. They shut the lights out, and then you can see through this green screen camera that they're just being screwed with tasers and like snake sound effects and things like that. It is such a cool bit because it's all psychological. It's all
there's no real danger.
Exactly. It's all perfectly genuine reactions. Like it all feels very authentic, and it's incredible because like I said, like this movie has great comic timing, and I think this is the best timed film. Like this is the best timed sketch in the entire film, because the biggest laugh in the whole movie, I think, would be where Aaron finds the second room that they are supposed to go in.
He's like, fuck you guys, I'm getting out of here.
And then immediately runs into a pan, like a hard cast iron pan that's hanging from the ceiling by a string.
What great
comedic
timing. What great comedic timing.
It's just, it's so perfectly edited and timed, and it's exactly what I wanted it to be. Like you can tell that there's like growth and there's a sense of comic growth and comedic timing throughout this entire film. And I think so much of it just hits bullseyes. That one really sticks out to me. Oh gosh, what else sticks out to me? I don't know why this one stands out to me. Maybe it's because it was supposed to be a bit, but it didn't work out. Was that Dirty Dancing one where they were going to attempt to do the Dirty Dancing bit where like Wee Man was going to try and do like the where Preston jumps on him I don't know the actress. I've never seen Dirty Dancing.
Oh, it's Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Graham.
Thank you. We'll go with that. I
watched the movie today, and I remember Patrick Swayze, but the actress's name escapes me.
Gotcha. But they're gonna recreate that bit, but Preston's gonna jump into Wee Man's arms. But Preston was trying to fart, and he accidentally pooped his pants. That was really great. I almost just love I love the genuine moments that you don't expect coming, sort of thing. Like I just like, it's supposed to be a bit, but it turns into something else, and everyone's getting like genuine reactions like, oh, this really just happened and we got it on film. Holy shit.
Another skit that does that for me is the spider helmet with Dark Shark. The moment when the spider ends up in his helmet, which again, hopefully you've already watched the movie, but I guess we'll describe the skit where they put a helmet, a see-through helmet on Dark Shark, Jasper's father, and another one connected by a see-through tube on Danger Aaron, and they have to blow a tarantula through the tube and try and get into the other one's helmet, and the loser it's going to bite them, whoever loses. But they flip that around anyway. It ends up in Dark Shark's helmet, and I love the intro to the scene because, and again, not being racist or anything at all. This is just Jasper. His son says this. Jasper's like, my dad spent time in prison. He's from the hood. Like, we're gonna fuck with him and do stuff that people from the hood don't want. Like nothing that they would like animals, bugs, things like that. And so they end up doing another animal skit later on. But like going into it, you're like, okay, so he's gonna hate this when you find out the premise for the skit. And the like genuine reaction from him when the spider falls into his helmet and he jumps up and grabs Knoxville and Tremaine. Who's the other one?
Knoxville and the spider trainer.
Oh, the spider trainer. That's right.
The animal trainer.
He grabs the animal trainer by his chest and Knoxville by his chest, and they're both like they can't get away. They're like, dude, you gotta let us go because we gotta help you out. And Knoxville's like kind of terrified. He's like, this guy's like got him by the chest because he's just pure terror. He's just feeling adrenaline and terror, and he almost passed out. Yeah, like he was like shaking when he got out of there. I mean that was a good one. I like
another one-liner that really stands out to me was when Rachel is doing the scorpion Botox and it falls off her face and lands on her chest, and she's like, "It's on my boob! It's on my boob!" And then Chris says,
she's like, "Get it off! Get it off!"
And he's like, "Get off!" And then Chris is like, "I can't do it unless you give me permission to do it.
I must have consent. I can't touch." She goes, "I give you consent."
She's like, "You have permission to do it."
She's like, "Get it off."
That was probably one of the biggest laughs in the movie for me. It was like, holy, that's great improvisation. Holy shit.
Some of my other favorite skits too are like reincorporation or like redoing and one-upping old skits. There's quite a few examples of this in the film where they take skits that they've either attempted or successfully done, whether successfully or unsuccessfully, in either the TV show or the film years ago, And they either put a twist on it or they do it successfully. One of the first ones that comes to mind is the cup test. The cup test is like one of the very first. They did that in the TV show. I mean, they show, and what's cool is in the movie they edit in clips from the old skits when they do some of these new versions of the skits. And the one up on this one is like, I don't know about you, but this is one where I like had my hands over my mouth. I was like,
pogo stick.
The whole thing. When they bring out one of the hardest punching heavyweight UFC fighters in the world, one of the fastest throwing softball players in the world, like this guy, this NHL player, PK Subban, who hits like an unbelievable slap shot, and then the pogo stick to end it. Like, just all awesome. Testing, the cup on is it Dave England?
On Aaron,
Aaron has the cup.
I want to give Aaron some credit. Aaron is a big butt of a joke throughout all 4 of these movies, but god damn it, he picks his spots well in this movie. He is the star of this film, and it's the first time that he feels like the star, aside from Terror Taxi and 2, which is one of my favorite bits in any Jackass movie. I think it's incredible. It's almost too good to be true. And he is the star of this movie, and he earns every little bit of pain that he gets, because he not only takes it like a champ, but he's great at delivering these huge reactions and like great improv, like comedic, like little reactions.
Going. He just keeps going. Like, he doesn't.
He's
quit
great.
He
He's so funny. He's easily the best member of the cast in this movie, in my opinion.
He is very good. It's funny that you bring him up.
Terrific.
He's very good in this. Another good one is the underwater fart fire, which, speaking of their upped budget from the TV show, again, we kind of mentioned a moment ago, the budget reportedly is less here than the third movie. But they have this massive tank, and they bring in a guy from Mythbusters, Tori Belleci or whatever, who's like an explosions demolition expert, to help them successfully light a fire underwater. And it works. They actually get this thing to work. It's like a legit explosion. It's one of the most like satisfying endings to a bizarre skit on Jackass. Like, the whole premise is like, dude, come on, light a fire underwater, and they actually do it. Like, it works. It's
also really funny being able to watch this movie twice in theaters, because the first time I had that big, like, almost jump scare sort of moment reaction to it, but the second time it happened, I knew it was coming, so I was watching the crowd instead of watching it, because I knew that explosion was coming, and I watched the crowd this time, and it was just as satisfying
to see people's first time reactions, their raw reactions.
Exactly. That's why. Another thing too, I want to say, I know we kind of loosely touched on this. These movies are so much fun to watch in a theater first run opening weekend with people that haven't seen it. Oh my God. Like, Seth Rogen tweeted this, there was a general prompt on film Twitter that was like, what is the best movie going experience you've ever had? And Seth Rogen quote tweeted it and said, the premiere of Jackass the movie in 2002 at the Man's Chinese Theater, and he said no movies play in theaters like the Jackass movies do, and I 1000% agree. That's part of why I love it. Communal experience. Exactly. It's like everyone is in this theater for the same reason and is like super amped and excited.
These guys be idiots.
And it's a really, like you said, it's a communal joy to be able to bring that to people, and I find that really, really exciting for some reason.
I mean, it's one of those things that you can't really put into words. It's what is so great about the movies, and it's just ironic that, I mentioned earlier, these aren't art house independent films, or these masterpieces that'll go down in history, and be talked about in film classes or whatever, but they bring out the best in the movie going experience, and that is just the audience together going to see that exactly what you're going to get. Better than any movie what you are going to get going to these movies, and you're going to go and have a great time with a group experience. And I mentioned to you, I went this morning at 11 a.m. showing where there was actually more people than I thought. There's maybe 20 people at the theater,
surprising,
for 11 a.m. on a Sunday. But I'm hoping to go see like a night showing soon here before it's been around too long to get an audience, a raw audience reaction, because I remember seeing Jackass 3 with that raw audience reaction on opening night, and it was so much fun.
Oh, especially with all your friends too.
Oh yeah, with a big group of friends was an absolute blast. A couple other stunts and skits here that stand out, especially in terms of reincorporation from older skits that they did in the film and the TV show. Johnny Knoxville, I think in every single movie and even the TV show, has done something with bowls, him getting hit, and
yeah, you're right.
Dude, I thought he was gonna die. Reportedly, Steve-O and Johnny Knoxville were in the hospital the first week of production, and I'm pretty sure it was from the marching band skit and the bull skit.
Yep.
Unbelievable. He did 2 flips. I mean, pretty much every time Johnny Knoxville does these bull stunts, he does a flip. And this time he did almost 2 full flips and just about broke his neck.
That is wildly impressive.
It was terrifying. I don't know about you, but this was one of the skits in the movie where I'm like, dude, like it's hard to watch.
It's crazy too, because that was something that was prominently featured in the advertising. Like every bull sketch, I think, has been featured in prominently, especially in number 2. I remember like when he gets hit by that yak. I think that's one of the bigger things that's featured in like the advertising on posters and TV ads, because it's something very easy that you can show to people to say this is what the film is like. And even with it being not spoiled, but like shown to as part of a sizzle reel, it still makes a huge impact.
Especially with, I don't know about you, but of all the bull stunts, especially watching just about all of them in a row this week, I felt like this one was the hardest one to watch. Because he's also 50 yeyears old now. Like it's terrifying at any age, but to be 50 and just get drilled like that.
It makes me wonder, because I agree with you. It feels like a harder hit for some reason. I don't know why, if it was sweetened at all, if there was like some sort of a sound effect added. I don't want to like put words in people's mouth, but it felt harder. I agree. It was something that I really did not expect coming and hitting as hard as it did. Speaking
of coming, there's also another great skit reincorporation. If you've seen, was it Jackass 2? It was 2. Yep. Chris Pontius, and probably one of the more difficult skits to watch, drinks horse semen. Mm-hmm. And in this film, they do a skit with pig semen. And Chris, unprompted, you brought up the like, you brought up like the comedic timing, unprompted. He's not even asked to do this. The skit has nothing to do with him. He tries a taste of it, just drinks it. Like no one has
to ask him or anything.
No one's even expecting it, because everyone like starts like is shocked when he does it. And then his like verdict on it is hilarious. He goes, "You know what? It's been more than 10 years. It's been a long time, but I think I prefer the horse."
No, he said he prefers the pig.
The pig. Did he say he preferred the pig?
He says the pig because it's like bacon tastes better than horse meat, right? That's it. Right, yeah.
But that was, in terms of like impromptu, like comedic timing, that was probably another,
especially reincorporation, if you want to say. Because I mean, like, it makes me wonder too if. Maybe we won't get into that. It makes me wonder too if like the horse was worse because it just came out.
Oh yeah,
if it was
warm.
More fresh.
God.
I guess that's the only thing I can think of where it would be more digest. I don't even want to get into that line of questioning.
The intricacies of
the intricacies.
The culinary aspects of that stuff. Yeah, good Lord. I'm now that we've brought up that skit, I want to mention this because something you guys talked about in your podcast. And I think maybe Eric brought this up, and it's something that's been on my mind in all of the films and the TV show, is there are some stunts and skits that are so hard to watch, either because they're absolutely disgusting or terrifying. Like I just brought up terrifying, but they're either absolutely disgusting or like so cringeworthy that you're like, oh my God, like you either turn away or like I don't know about you, man. You love Jackass. I really enjoy Jackass, but I skip through some scenes in the movies.
Tell me what you skip through, because I've seen all of the movies, I would say at least 6 times each in my life, and I've watched through the show many times. I've watched the Viva La Bam many times. It's more of a hyperfixation than anything. I think it's more based on that, but it really is one of my favorite shows, and I've seen pretty much everything, if I'm not mistaken. What is difficult for you? Because I'm curious.
There's a couple right away off the top of my head. I know for a fact this week I fast forwarded through because I've also seen them it'd been a while since I'd watched them. I watched them a ton in middle school, high school, and college, so it had just been a while. So I did rewatch all of them, but I fast forwarded through Paper Cuts.
Yes, we talked about that on the episode. That's always the one people
stand that one.
Everyone has a really visceral reaction because I think it relates back to, I think I talked about this on the episode. It relates back to that visceral feeling of everyone. I think most people have had a paper cut in their life. They know the feeling, and when it's in a sensitive place, like between your fingers or toes or something like that, it makes it all the more really difficult to endure.
Yep, I can't watch that one. I fast forward through it. The other one I fast forward through always is the fart suit or the
fart mask.
The fart mask.
That's gross. I get it. Yeah, I get
the
it.
sweat, and then what was the other one? The sweat suit they do. Is that in 3 when they do the
That's
sweat
in 3,
suit?
yeah.
And he drinks it. I can't watch it.
I get it. I don't know.
I just fast forward through that.
I
one.
get it. Maybe it's because I'm just a sweaty. I just sweat. Maybe I'm just more of a
dude.
Are you sweaty too?
I'm a very
I don't
sweaty
know.
dude,
I don't.
but watching someone drink someone else's sweat, I'm like,
I hear people say that a lot. I've never had a reaction like that, but I understand that. I don't know. I've never had to turn it off. Maybe I don't know if my threshold for shit like this is higher, but I don't know. I haven't had any issues with not watching anything.
most of the shit stuff doesn't get me too bad unless like shit gets in their face or their mouth, like the poo I don't fast forward the poo cocktail supreme, but I do when they like show Steve-O's like face during the moment, I kind of got to look away. But yeah, it's really, it's like because everyone knows what, shit smells like. So it's like to see, and everyone's been in a porta potty. I mean, most people I would imagine have. So like that one, I got to kind of turn away. I don't fast forward it, but the reason I bring this up is because I don't know about you, but me personally, there's not a single, and you kind of mentioned this a little bit already, there's not a single skit in this film that I think I would be like, I can't watch this, I gotta fast forward. There's a few where like I had my hands in my mouth and I'm like, dude, I'm like, no, like I'm terrified.
Yeah, it's a natural reaction. It's like, it's that tightening sort of thing that I love. I love movies that can bring out like real reactions like that.
Like you're gripping the handles on your seat, or you're sitting up a little bit more, like sitting back, and you're like, no.
Yeah, some of my favorite movies of all time elicit like really strong feelings like that.
I think
like,
the best movies elicit strong emotional reactions.
My favorite movie of 2021, Titan. I was like that the entire fucking movie. I was just clinching. Eric and I watched that together in a theater by ourselves. You
guys saw that in theaters? Did you?
We saw it in theaters at Celebration Lansing. We saw it together, and we're the only ones in the theater. If we were not the only ones in the theater, we would have been obnoxious shitheads the entire time, because we were just like talking during it and like gripping the seats and like because there's so much like crazy stuff that's happening at all ends, and like an amazing movie. It's my favorite. Like I said, it's my favorite movie of 2021. I don't want to get too off topic, but just a small anecdote to go off that. I saw Climax in Lansing, NCG. Me too. Eric and I saw that together
too.
You
really?
Yeah.
I saw that in Lansing, NCG. I couldn't believe it because everyone was raving about Climax back in, what was that? That was 2019 movie, I think.
Good. It's pretty awesome.
And speaking of another fucked up French horror experimental film, there was only like, I went by myself and there was maybe 4 or 5 other people in the theater. Everybody left. Everybody walked out during the film except me and one other guy. And so we got to walk out together, and I was like,
oh, during Climax?
Everyone left. All the people walked out of the movie.
I was going to say that too. I remember Eric and I went to go get drinks together. We saw it on St. Patrick's Day, actually. We went to Claddock's and got some drinks, and then we were thinking of maybe going to see a movie. It's like, you want to go walk to NCG and see a movie? And I recommended Climax because I heard it was crazy, and I saw it was getting festival raves.
It was.
I think there were 8 people in the theater, and by the time the movie ended, there were 4 people, including Eric and I.
There was like 6 or 7 when I was there. It was me and one other guy were the only ones left, and we didn't come together, but we walked out together, and I'm like, dude, did you notice everyone else left the movie?
I've never seen such a huge simultaneous walkout of a theater before. It's so funny. The only other time I noticed it was when I saw Bad Grandpa in theaters, and it was during the dildo strip club scene.
Bringing it back, nice.
It was during the dildo strip club scene, and like these 5 very old conservative looking people walked out during that part.
I don't understand people who like I feel like people don't go to a movie knowing what they're seeing sometimes. Like they just like, I feel like especially
he's a bad grandpa.
Well, especially old people like
Yes.
like boomers, or like I don't know what the silent generation, whatever the fuck our
Yes, that's the one next
whatever
up,
our
I think.
grandparents are. Like I feel like they go to a movie like, let's see what's on the marquee and we'll just pick something. Like, they don't use the
Bad
internet
grandpa.
as much as we do.
I'm a grandpa. Like,
yeah, exactly. So they have no idea what's going on.
Then they see big giant dildos on screen. It's like, okay, that's
I have actually not seen Bad Grandpa, and I gotta watch it this week because I got the box set, so I'm gonna have to check it out.
It's okay. I have not watched it since I saw it in theaters. It's okay. It's worth seeing once, just if you want to be a completionist.
I got it on the box set over there, so I'll probably have to check it out sometime.
I would just watch it. I don't expect much, but yeah, that's all I can say.
So, and touching back before we went down a little bit of a rabbit hole there, but kind of bringing it back a little bit to what I was mentioning, the other thing I wanted to add. So this film doesn't have, in my opinion, anything if you are a casual Jackass fan, a casual to extreme, if you've never seen these movies, maybe you'll get offended. I don't know. But if you know what to expect somewhat, I just didn't think there was anything too disgusting compared to some of the other things they've done. There was nothing that, as I watched this film and thinking back on it, I'm like, you know, at home, if I bought this, like, I wouldn't fast forward through any of this. Like, there's nothing wasted. You mentioned nothing feels wasted. It's really solid from start to finish.
Very tight.
It's something you and Eric brought up in your podcast. Nothing feels too mean-spirited. You guys talked about that a lot, how some of the other films have moments that are mean-spirited. I want to pose a question.
What's up?
From some of the things I've seen, reports on the movie from cast members on set, do you think losing Bam Margera takes away some of the mean-spirited aspect? Because before you share your opinion, I just want to add this for anyone listening. I have read that on all of these films, he takes things too far. A great example is the Rocky skit, which was that 3 or 2?
That's in 3. And then 3.5, you see that extra footage where he's like going at Aaron like over and over and over.
Yeah,
again.
and people have talked about that he doesn't know when to stop. Like and part of it was him always being drunk and high. I mean, most of the behind the scenes stuff, he's like, I gotta get a beer. Like he's got to drink. He's always drinking. So I'm wondering. And then you guys talked about how kind of the snake stuff that they did to him was mean-spirited, but I'm wondering if there's so much stuff we don't see behind the scenes with him that they're like, you know, fuck Bam, we're gonna do this to him because he won't stop. Like he needs to be effed with back. So what is your take on that?
It definitely feels justified, but I still think it's mean, especially like to go that far and in the sense that
I'm not saying it was okay. It was not okay.
Oh, sure. I definitely think that Bam doesn't know when to stop in a lot of sense, especially on the third movie. I think that's what there's a through line of him like doing all the Rockies and like going too far, and he's doing that where he puts that camera on his penis.
Yeah, he's peeing on people nonstop. Yeah, it's
very funny and I laugh. But at the same time, though, like it doesn't. I don't know. It's not a satisfying arc to watch him crying these really deep traumatic tears of pain. Like it's very painful to watch that stuff to me, like that scene to me, where he like gets where he falls into like a trap door and like he gets poured like tons of snakes on him and like that are like trying to nip it, and he's terrified of snakes. For people that don't know, Bam has a giant phobia.
He has like a legit phobia.
A legit phobia of snakes, and it's really hard to watch that. Where it's funny because in 2 I think it's really great. I think the bit where the wind tunnel bit where they lock him up with a king cobra, I think is a really, really funny high point because the comic timing is good and the arc that is being fulfilled by that is really strong. The arc in Jackass 3 is not very satisfying because it's not funny to me. It's not as funny, really.
Yeah. So again, though, do you think losing him kind of gets rid of that mean spirit all around both ways? I
think Bam in general is just kind of I definitely think he goes much harder than, and like you said, doesn't know when
at
to
each
stop.
other against each other castmates. I think part of it is just kind of that personality that he has in it, and I think Ryan probably was reining him in a little bit too, because Ryan, I never get that vibe from him at all. Ryan, it feels very fun, very cool, very lax sort of thing. So yeah, because Bam takes it. You guys brought up the glue skit when he grabs Ryan's beard. Like Bam does some things to Ryan, and Ryan seems to not.
That bit is really funny to me. For being honest,
it's very funny. It's very funny. But I just bring that up as an example of like Bam going hard at his best friend, but his best friend kind of just, you know, he's like, "Oh, you're a dick," but he always kind of lets Bam do that stuff. But I just felt watching this movie, you know, going into it, I'm like, man, I wonder what's going to be like without Ryan, because he was a big part of the cast. And, you know, I always liked Viva La Bam growing up too. I always had fun time watching that show. But I thought Bam not being there, I didn't miss him. Honestly, by the time the movie ended, I didn't feel like I missed him. I thought the original cast and the addition of the new people kind of filled any void.
It's a great time.
Any void I was expecting to be there. I thought it was great. Unless you have anything else you want to add, I was going to kind of get into talking about ranking some things with the franchise.
Totally. Yeah. No, I think we covered pretty much everything I wanted to say. I think, I think Jackass Forever is great. I think it is, well, we'll get into ranks in a second, but I really do like the film. I think it's really solid. It's, it's among some of the best things that I think Jackass has done as a collective and as a series over the last 20 years. I think it really, if this is the last thing that Jackass ever does, I would be totally satisfied with it. I think it ends on a really nice note. And I thought 3 ended on the ending of 3 never really sat perfectly with me. It always felt like it just felt kind of tacked on a little bit, that they were doing like the side-by-side sort of baby pictures next to everything. It felt like a little too much nostalgia for me.
Yeah, it's very abrupt. It was not, I remember when I went to see it, I was not expecting this, like, especially at the ending of that movie, like their final skit, I was not expecting like this emotional credit sequence.
Yeah, it's I don't know, something about it just never hit me in this big giant feels way about it. Like, so I think some people did. I never really felt that, but I'm glad people did. But at the same time, I always felt like, I don't think they're done yet. I think there's something more that they can pull out of this if they want to. And like, we got it. We got it. And I think that if this is the last thing, I would be totally fine. Jackass 3D never fully sat with me. I still gave it a positive rating. I think I gave it a 6 out of 10, which is like my minimum threshold for a good movie. But there's a lot about the third film that doesn't sit right with me, in just how of its priorities and its arcs. That's what I would say about 3. But 4, I think, kind of goes back in and shows, hey, we're not done yet. We can still pull something out of this general idea. And a lot of it's really great.
So since we're just going to go ahead and I want to talk about openings and endings for these films, but since you're kind of already there, how would you rank, if you want to just share really quickly, how would you rank them? Franchise
the openings,
in general.
The openings specifically, right?
No. Before we get to talking about the openings and endings of the films, I figured while you're already on the topic, what's your Jackass ranking for the 4 films? If you want to throw in Bad Grandpa or The Haves, that's up to you.
Yeah, I'll do the main 4, and then I can tell you my opinions of The Haves and stuff. My favorite is number 2, followed very closely by Forever. I liked Forever the second time about the same. Honestly, I thought it was a very consistent watch. Even after just watching it a couple of days prior, I didn't feel any lethargy kind of coming off of it after watching it so recently. Like, it was still very fun and the timing was great. And even though I was anticipating those moments, it was still really, really entertaining. So that's just under 2. Then I would say 1, and then I would say 3. But all of them I would give at least a 6 out of 10. If you want me to do score, I'll do scores. Fuck it. Number 2 is a 9. Forever's an 8. The Jackass the movie's a 7. Number 3 is 3D is a 6. And a 6 is my like I said, minimum threshold for a good movie is a 6, I would say. I like 2.5 as a 6, I would say. It's pretty fun. It's exactly what it promises.
Yeah, it's just like extras, basically.
It's extra footage. It doesn't really, it feels like a little, it genuinely feels like these are things, like all the segments that they put in 2.5 feel like they should be in 2.5. There was nothing in 2.5 that I felt like, why is this not in 2? Like, this is really strong. 3.5, I feel the exact opposite on.
And I agree with you on this after watching it, because I'd never seen it before until you talked about it.
There is so much in 3.5 that I think
feels like another movie.
Miles better than most of 3, in my opinion. I think
there's a lot of stuff I couldn't believe they cut watching it.
Yeah, like there's so much stuff that works really well, that like has a great flow, a great energy. Everyone's having a great time. It's a party. It just feels really good. I love all the documentary footage as well, too.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. The only thing that I would switch, but now after you listening to you guys talk on your podcast, I'm like reassessing how I felt about 3. I feel like I got to go back, especially after watching 3.5, because I watched 3.5 after I watched 3, and I'm like, damn, 3.5 really does feel
really good,
like a better movie, or like there's a better movie in here. Obviously, it's still got interviews and kind of, outtakes and things like that, but like it felt like there was a better movie between the 2 products. I feel like they could have joined them, edited the 2 films together and created maybe a bit of a better product. But I have trouble rating these films. For me, when I try to rate a movie, I try to rate them based on what they're going for. Jackass Forever to me just feels like a perfect Jackass movie. I know you really like the charm and the DIY aspect of the franchise, and I think obviously its roots are very important. But I gotta be honest, I think Jackass Forever is as perfect for me as a Jackass movie as you can get.
That's great.
I originally liked 3 the next most, but now I feel like I need to go watch it again and reassess myself here. And 1 and 2, I'm kind of split on, because 1 and 2, I feel like have some of the aspects I'm critical of. Like, they both have things that I love about them, but they both have things that like there's scenes I would skip, like that I can't watch. The only reason I would put 1 over number 2, and this is what I would like to kind of wrap things up with, is I love the opening to 1.
Ooh,
I think Jackass number 1, Jackass the movie, has one of the best openings for any of these films. Jackass Forever has an incredible opening. I adore the opening, because it feels
I think all 4 openers are really strong. I don't dislike any of the openers, honestly.
No, I don't dislike any of them.
Yeah.
To me, 2 has the weakest opening, though. The running of the bulls through like a set neighborhood. It's still entertaining. It's still a lot of fun. And I love I'm Johnny Knoxville, welcome to Jackass. He gets thrown through a window. Obviously, it's a lot of fun. But there's something about the first movie's opening that like I'm nostalgic for, because I think that's the movie I've seen the most, because I think like once I was allowed to buy that movie, I think I got it for like a Christmas or birthday gift when I was like 14 or something like that. And I remember, I think I was 14. I think it was after. I still am not 100% convinced I didn't see 2 in theater, but that's another, I got to explore that a little bit later. But number 1, there's something about that opening that like has always stuck with me. Them going down this bridge in slow-mo in this massive shopping cart, just beating the crap out of each other, exploding like construction materials and bricks and mortar flying on them, and then they get rocket launched into like this mock-up like grocery fruit stand is just, I don't know, it kind of goes back to what you said, the simplicity of some of the skits and some of the older stuff, but it's like it's a super simple idea that they've just obviously put more money into because they've given more money, and I just love that about that very first opening.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think I really love the running of the bulls, but I respect what you're saying about it. If I was to criticize the running of the bulls a little bit, I think that there are some shots of the intro that feel a little staged and separate from the actual like initial launch of running down the street.
Yeah,
there are some that do feel a little bit staged. So I like the concept a little more than the execution. I do agree with you. The shopping cart is great in the sense that it feels very authentic. It feels like it was done in one take and they got all the best shots and they edited it together really well. So I think I agree with you on that front.
What about the endings? I'm having trouble kind of going through the endings here, picking out what is my favorite one. I am not a huge fan. I think the ending to 2, you said 2 is your favorite, but I think the ending is so anticlimactic. Obviously,
really?
I don't know. Obviously, Rip Taylor is like a huge part for a while. I think he passed away after 3, didn't he?
He did, yeah. He passed away
19.
I think, maybe
just a couple years ago.
Yeah, he just missed that window.
Yeah, the ending of 2, where they transition to the like musical production. I guess, I don't know. It's all right.
Yeah.
It's fun.
I think it's great. Honestly, like I think especially coming off that high of Terror Taxi, I think it's a really good like palate cleanser.
That's
to
true.
The end. I don't know. Like, you know what's funny? I think Vomitron is by far the new one.
I think it's the best ending.
No.
What?
I think it's the worst.
Really?
I was expecting. It's good.
One.
It's good. It's fine. I think there should be one more big one after it, and then the movie ends. I think the pacing up until that point was so solid, and then it felt like, oh, we're at the end. Oh, okay, all right, that's fine. This is a good place to stop. But I felt like there was one more.
Too abrupt.
I think it was. I thought there was one more coming. Where I think the other 3 films all have like their places. Where I think the first one is tricky because like all you see of the ending to the first one, aside from Butt X-Ray, which is like the big closer, but you get the Rip Taylor closer where he gets catapulted into that failed like Rube Goldberg ending. If you watch the special features from 1, you'll see that it was originally supposed to be this giant Rube Goldberg experiment where like it's like this big like one thing happens and then the next and the next and the next, and then it just didn't come. It didn't work, unfortunately. Yeah. So that one's probably my second least favorite, and then I think I would say 2 is my favorite. I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with 2. I don't think it's anticlimactic. Well, I think it's really well staged and fun, and yeah.
Would you count though the ending where they all blow up? in Jackass.
Yeah, that's
1
the
is
ending
the
of
official
3.
ending.
That's
Yeah.
probably the second best. Yeah.
No, isn't that in 1? That's after the credits.
That's in 3.
1.
That's in 3 where like the entire room floods and everything.
No, oh no, sorry, I didn't elaborate enough. Where they're all blowing up, but they're old men. Where they're going down the street, and they're all like in the outfits.
I don't consider that the ending. I consider that just
Okay.
like an extra thing. Yeah.
Okay, you consider it like like an added bonus skit at the end.
It's cute. It's fun. That's all I can say about it.
What did you think about 3? The ending for 3?
It's
did you
good.
enjoy that
I like
one?
it. It does what it needs to do. I think, yeah, rips back and yeah, it's cool. Like the Phantom camera's back. There's more Phantom camera. That's all I can really say about 3 in general, honestly.
So could we say in general that maybe they struggled to kind of stick the landings of the films, whereas the openings I feel like are more memorable?
Yeah, the openings are definitely really where you need to like make your impression, and I think all 4 films do have really, really strong openings. 3, I think, is the weakest opening, but I mean, it's just like, how much do you like Phantom Camera? That's really all you can say.
I enjoyed it. I remember seeing
cool.
it in
There's
3D.
just too much.
I remember seeing it in 3D, and I hate 3D movies. I do not go to see 3D movies, but that is one of the few movies I saw in theater and did the 3D glasses. And I remember all the shit flying off the screen. And I remember just, especially as a 18-year-old, like seeing penises and dildos fly off the screen as an 18-year-old.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, for sure. I think the 3D is the 3D of 3 is fun for sure. I'm glad this new one is not in 3D. I think that would have been an easy ploy to do, or like to kind of bring people back. But I'm glad it was a one and done experiment. And there are some things in 3D related that I liked seeing in theaters. But unfortunately, if you ever get the single Blu-ray by itself, I used to have it and then I sold it because I went, when am I ever going to watch this? Because I have the entire collection. Jackass 3 comes with the shitty red and blue 3D that you can actually put a filter on your TV and watch it that way. And I watched it for 20 minutes with the red and blue, really? And I was like, I'm going to sell this. I don't want it.
I didn't know that. Interesting.
Yeah, exactly. And that's weird because none of these movies the 3 is available on Blu-ray, but 1 and 2 are not anywhere. It's weird. Well, you probably don't need it to be on Blu-ray.
Yeah.
But at the same time, though, there is a Blu-ray version that exists on iTunes for number 2, but that's not available anywhere to buy. It's very weird.
Okay, interesting.
I like it. I would want it because I collect Blu-ray, but still.
Yeah, so do I. I mean, I'm pretty much. I have like less than 24 DVDs left on my shelf.
I think I have maybe 10 of stuff that's out of print that I can't buy physically.
Yeah, that's pretty much my rule now is for a DVD, like for me to justify keeping it, it's something either I don't care that it's on DVD or it's like hard, like something you can't get very easily. Or I have like a couple special, like I got a cool special edition box set of Punch Drunk Love on DVD. Like there's no reason to do that. But like I broke down and bought the Jackass box set, but it's a DVD box set. But I remember I said to my friend who knows I'm obsessed with buying Blu-rays, he's like, oh, you got it on DVD? I'm like, yeah, they don't have like a Blu-ray box set of this. And do you really need to see this stuff in high definition? I mean,
I would like it in high definition, but it's not necessary. I get it. I understand.
I'm sure
why.
this new one will probably be released on Blu-ray, I would think.
Blu-ray. Yeah, I already checked. It's coming out in early April on Blu-ray. So
are they gonna do 4K of the
4K? That's a good question. I can't imagine why not.
So before we kind of wrap things up here, just kind of a couple last things I want to touch on. Future of the franchise. Kind of mentioned a little bit. Do you think they come back? Do you think they do any other films? Any other outings?
Johnny has already publicly said that this is his last film role that he wants to do in his career. I mean, never say never, money talks, yada, yada, yada. But if I would not be shocked if they did another one, especially seeing how this made it like pre-Sunday, it made almost $30 million. And so it already tripled its budget, especially in like COVID times. I think that's insanely impressive. So yeah, I would like to think that, if anything, I would like to see Jackass continue instead of like a collective, I would like to see it as a means. Like I'd like to see all of the members individually doing their own thing. I would like to see that, like Steve-O, for example, has been doing his own thing. He does stand-up comedy. He does like speaking engagements. He has like merch. And I actually saw him and met him. And I went to go see his stand-up in Muskegon on his bucket list tour. And I met him afterward. He was very nice. And Yeah, he's been doing really well. He has a YouTube channel, he has a podcast. Like, I would like to see them individually do their own thing, and then sometimes collaborate and cross over and hang out with each other. There actually was like a Jackass live tour that hit mostly A markets, like big cities, where it was like Pontius, Dave England, Aaron, Wee Man, Preston, like all doing like a Q&A sort of thing, and then maybe some Jackass stunts. Yeah, I wanted to go to that. I was too young at the time. I couldn't afford to drive to Chicago at the time.
Yeah, I think I remember
to do it. If it came to Michigan, though, I would totally do that. But I kind of would like to see them like do their own projects, as well as maybe like Comic-Con appearances. I think that is something that they could easily do over and over. And I would love to meet any of them and do it in that sort of a format. So I would like to see their future more in that than necessarily another movie, because I never want them to do a movie where they feel like they're forcing it. Where Forever feels very organic and authentic. And if they end it on here, I'm totally content, because I love it. And I know that that sort of legacy didn't have to end on a sort of note that 3D kind of left it on, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy with how Forever ended, and it feels like a good place to stop. If it ended, I would be totally fine with it.
I agree with you 100%, man. Right there with you. And I also would be surprised. I mean, I was, like you said, never say never. I was surprised that this came out. So who knows? My only speculation, I think I mentioned earlier, my only speculation is bringing in all of these new cast members, that maybe that leads to something. And I think more than once in the film, they mentioned something about, we've done our dues. I think Chris Pine said something like that. We put in our dues. Now it's your guys' turn, or something like that. So I don't know. Maybe something happens with that, but we'll see. Time will tell. The last thing I want to hit on before we wrap things up, kind of just general zeitgeist and pop culture for this franchise and phenomenon. Jackass, looking back, how influential are these guys? Especially, you and I were talking for a while about YouTube and kind of things like that. Think about, maybe you guys brought this up in your podcast too. I can't remember if you did or not. Think about all of the shitty like prank channels on YouTube, and like how popular like and monetized that has become. And who do you have to thank for that? I mean, these guys were the ones to really popularize and start that. Doing stupid shit for money, pranking people. Granted, their pranks on people were never like what you see on YouTube. Like, some of the stuff that's on YouTube is just like, dude, really, like nothing that even touches something like Bad Grandpa, for example, where gets a much better laugh, in my opinion, than some of the things.
Oh yeah. I totally agree with you. I think so many people miss the point of what Jackass is doing, in the sense that I never feel like any of the pranks that they do, don't put words in my mouth, or don't quote me on this. I don't think any of the pranks that people do are ever go too far, or intentionally are trying to hurt innocent bystanders, sort of thing. I don't think there's ever a stunt where like someone is like accidentally hurting someone that doesn't purposely hurt someone. In Jackass, I don't think there's like, compared to these like stupid YouTube prank channels.
Yes.
Where I feel like they kind of, like I said, they kind of missed the point of the idea that it's not meant to antagonize. Like, you can antagonize it, like in number 2 with Bad Grandpa sketch, and that's one of my favorite bits in the movie, is the improv sort of argument sort of stuff that Johnny gets into with that fake son of his, where I feel like a lot of these YouTube channels are so focused on like just getting big reactions, sort of things, where they do it at the expense of the person, where it riles them up emotionally. And I think what you're touching on is a lot of the pranks from Jackass don't end in a way where the person is so angry, at least that I can think of, where they're so angry and furious, where they are going to hit, assault, or try and hurt the prankster. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's never meant to get someone so frustrated to the point where they like don't want to sign a release waiver or something. It's never I don't know, and it's never like hitting. It's never involving hitting someone that is just walking by, or really screwing with someone. Like, it's more just, I don't know, like shocked reaction, like, what am I seeing? Yeah, that's all you really need to do. Yeah, that's all you really need. And to go further than that defeats the purpose of actually pranking somebody.
The only one I can think of is like the bad grandpa one in 1. Where's the one where he's like shoplifting? Is the shoplifter? He's not Bad Grandpa. Is that in one where he's shoplifting and he's grabbing stuff out of the store?
Yeah, that's
and
in the
guy...
first. Yeah, that's the that's called the shoplifter.
Shoplifter.
Yeah, even that guy, like, it's fine. Did he lose any money? Like, he was doing it so obviously that he was going to get caught. If he was actually stealing shit and like was walking out of it and was actually stealing stuff, then I would agree. I would agree, like, hey, maybe you shouldn't steal from people, but he's doing it so obviously that he's putting it in his fucking jacket. Like, of course he's gonna get caught.
Well, and he's playing it as an old man, so it's like the guy isn't gonna attack him. He's just gonna take the stuff away and tell him to get out of the store. So I think
and he's in New York City doing this too. Like, what do you think's gonna happen?
It's an important distinction, I think. And yeah, I think a lot of those other people who try to imitate this, influenced by it, miss the point. That's for sure. But
exactly.
Yeah, their influence is monumental. And if you've never seen Jackass, where have you been? It's been a part of pop culture for more than 2 decades now. And
if you want to get into it, go to Amazon or your local DVD store and get that box set. You can get all 7 movies, including The Haves and Bad Grandpa and the TV show, all in a box for probably anywhere between $10 and $20. And that is one of the best investments I've ever made.
The box set that I got doesn't have the TV show, unfortunately. It has 7 films.
That has, I think that's $8, but the one I got was like a double. Yeah, that one was a double package that I got for $20 when it originally came out, because I had all these movies separately and I traded them all.
Does yours
have
the TV show too?
It does. There is one. It was more money. I think the one that you have was like 8 to 10, and the one I have is like 20, 25. So
yeah, I don't remember if I mentioned it since we started recording, but before we started recording, I definitely brought it up that I used to own the DVD box set.
I used to have that too.
And I got rid of it in college because I was like, I was trying to clear out my shelf, and now I regret it. I wish I would have held on to it, but I'll try and get it back at some point.
It's funny, when I got the new box set, I did the same thing, but when I turned mine in and sold it, I kept that little booklet that came with everything that had all the photographs in it and stuff. I kept that, so I still have that.
See, I remember having that. Now I'm so mad that I got rid of it. But stupid past Vince getting rid of cool stuff.
Watch some Jackass. You'll get over it.
Yeah. Most of that stuff I know you can watch on YouTube, but you can tell from behind me, I like having the physical thing you can hold.
Mm-hmm. You could probably, I was gonna say, you could go to eBay probably and find that for decent. Get the booklet or something.
I'm sure I could. All right, Landon, anything else you want to add on Jackass here? Otherwise, we'll wrap things up.
No, Vince, thank you so much for having me. I'm glad this worked out in the way that it worked out. I know I was originally supposed to come on a couple of months ago, and then things got crazy with the holidays, but it just kind of worked out. It was meant to be. Yep.
That's life, man. Well, before we wrap things up, you want to plug the podcast or anything else you want to plug in addition?
Totally, yeah. You can follow me on Twitter at I got Defever man. It's just I got and then my last name Defever, which I'm sure is in the video of this YouTube or wherever you're listening to this. I'm most active on Twitter. You can also follow me on Instagram at DuhFever, DUH Fever. I'm also on Letterboxd at Landon Defever, just my name. And Eric Spitz and I do a podcast every 2 weeks called Films for the Void, and we talk about movies we've recently watched, as well as rotate picking a main topic movie. We've talked about everything from Shrek to Saw to Hereditary to Almost Famous to Stop Making Sense to anything and anything you could think of, plus the Jackass trilogy, which we did back in September, if you want to hear our extended thoughts on that. And you can follow us on Twitter at films_void as well. And also my co-host Eric has a podcast called Juxtaposed Journey. So that's all my plugging. That's everything. That's plenty of content for you to absorb.
Hey man, I gave you the platform. You got to take it and run with it.
Oh yeah, I basically am just regurgitating what I say at the end of every Films for the Void episode. So there you go.
Makes it easy.
Exactly. Boom. I do this every 2 weeks.
Well, and I'll make it even easier. If you're listening or watching, you go to the description box for the audio episodes or the video versions. You'll find everything Landon just mentioned right there. Make it nice and
awesome.
Easy for you. Cool. Thank you for listening. Vince. Absolutely. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. If you took some time to watch a couple Jackasses talk about Jackass, I'll be back with another episode hopefully very soon. In the meantime, check me out on Twitter, Nerd Vince, Letterboxd, Vince Film Nerd. You can catch these video versions of these episodes on YouTube, Vince the Film Nerd. You can also listen on Apple or Spotify or any of your favorite podcast stores on the Film Nerd podcast. And then I also post reviews on Instagram, Vincent R. Cook. Until next time, I'm Vince with guest Landon Defever. Go watch the movies.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
I feel the need for speed.
Roads? Where we're going, we don't need roads.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?